Hello and welcome back to Talk About Strange. I have a special treat here for you today. We have what I believe is going to be the final submission from Jane. She wrote in and just gave me a much more detailed version of her time out in the forest and tried to answer some questions for some of the comments that we have on here. This is really amazing, and unfortunately, like I said, I think it's going to be the final time we hear from her. So we'll just send her a lot of love and hope maybe that someday she'll change her mind and give us some more. But until then, I am going to share this story with you, so stick around. You're going to really enjoy this. I know I did the first time I went over it here. As far as updates go, join that membership if you would, please. It really helps the channel keep us going, and you'll get a discount on the shirts and stuff. That we've been getting more stuff up there, so now we have the shirts, sweatshirts, tumblers, mugs. I got a special surprise coming for you. You're gonna wanna know what that is. You're really gonna enjoy this. I know you are. But that's something I'm working on right now. She brings it up here. I'm gonna try not to accidentally spill the beans because I'd already went over this with her quick. But other than that's about it. I just want to get right to the story. I'm trying to think if there's anything I wanted to go over. Oh, we haven't had any new updates that I've seen yet on that the wild woman there that they found back in the early 1900s. I'm still hoping we're going to get some more information on that. So anyway, let's get to the story here, and we'll go from there. I got a lot of great stuff coming in, but I want to get to this. Hello, I hope all you and all of your Talk About Strange family are doing well. To be honest, I never thought I would be writing to you again. My only intention was to get this story off my chest. I had no idea that so many people would care so much. Please express my sincerest gratitude to all of your subscribers that commented on my story. I see there were a few people that didn't believe my story. Don't be upset with them. I probably wouldn't believe it either if it hadn't happened to me. The fact is that every passing year I question myself more, but I still have a few things that remind me just how real it was, like that old leather bag my Indian friend Charlie gave me. There were several questions. I'd like to try and answer some of them if I can, but first to you. Steve, thank you for your beautiful narration of my story. Listening to you, I closed my eyes and was right back out there with my forest family. I was overwhelmed with feelings I'd almost forgotten. Memories flashed through my mind, and I cried and cried. Not all sad, though. It was a combination of beautiful memories and, yes, even sad ones. It's a journey I'd gladly take again and again. Thank you for your non-judgmental compassion. I could see by watching you that we, the viewers, were not alone on these journeys. You open your heart with truth, compassion, and understanding that most people can't even comprehend. Thank you. A couple people mentioned in the comments that I should write a book. You mentioned in a previous conversation that an author offered her services to Wendy, Clair, Amarik, and myself. Please extend my sincerest gratitude to her and the others. I must decline for a few reasons. First, I have no need for the money. Second, I definitely don't need or want the attention. Lastly, books require a lot of intimate details, and while it might be nice to see my life on a bookshelf, I have no right to share the intimate details of my forest family's lives. It's flattering, but sharing my story here with you and your channel friends is enough. Rest assured, I will be putting together a journal to pass down. So maybe someday when I'm long gone, someone can write a novel about my life. And probably will. For now, I'd like to just try and answer some of the questions. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share a bit more about my time in the forest with my family while doing so. With that said, though you don't need it, you are absolutely welcome to add anything I send you to your... Oh, that's the secret. So we're going to move past that. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's a great idea, and your subscribers will love it. All right, moving right along, I'll start with a brief summary of my home life so you'll understand better how I came to running away. I want to say to all of you young girls and boys out there that might be hearing this, running away is not the answer. More often than not, you'll end up homeless or dead. So stay home and work it out. Good advice. Very good advice. Anyway, I wasn't an only child. I have a much older brother. He moved away when I was very young, maybe 4 or 5. We reconnected at my father's funeral many years after my return home. I also have a younger sister. She has become more of a best friend / sister throughout the years. She was very angry with me for leaving her behind, even for a long time after I returned. She knows everything about where I was and what I'd been through. Oh. In fact, it was her that encouraged me to write in the first place. She's never been good at minding her own business, laugh out loud. But I love her and I'm glad she forgave me. My father, rest his soul, was a very ambitious businessman. We didn't see much of him growing up. I didn't understand then, but I do now. He only wanted to make certain that my mother and us would never worry for anything, and he did just that. He loved us more than I knew when I left. My mother was a homemaker and a faithful mother and wife. She always seemed to understand my father when my father was working so much, and always had a plate at the table and a smile on her face when he came home from work, no matter what time that was. That was another thing that eluded me as a child, but I figured it out later. At the time, I was just an angry teen that felt like my little sister had it made and always got her way. I was even mad at my brother for not sticking around to look out for me when life got tough. I guess I became the black sheep of the family. So as soon as I found a good excuse to leave and teach them all a lesson, I took it like a foolish child always does. As for the Yakima boy, I was probably a little hard on him too. Yes, he was kind of a jerk, but I already should have known that. We fought, but he never raised a hand to me, even when I smacked him in the face. But then again, he was so high, he probably thought it was funny. That was the problem. When I walked off, it never dawned on me that he was so high, he probably didn't even realize I'd left. I think I was angry with him because he was so carefree when I just wanted to be angry. I don't harbor any hard feelings towards him. When I left, I told him I never wanted to see him again, and obviously he wasn't the type to chase after me. I'm sure he assumed I went home and forgot about him. I remember we had walked a long way into the forest so my parents wouldn't find us. That was why it took me so long to realize I was lost. In my rage, I stormed off and walked a long way, thinking I was on the same trail because I was on what I thought was a trail. When the sun started setting, it was when the trail seemed to disappear. I tried to turn back, but I think I was going in circles or going further into the forest. I became so terrified that I started seeing things. Every sound I heard was something that I thought was going to jump out and get me. A few times over those days, I heard what I thought was traffic, way out in the distance. I tried to follow the sounds, only for them to fade out and disappear again. I realize now that even if it was the sounds of traffic, it was probably just echoes from miles away. That led me in the opposite direction. Something I forgot to mention before, there was an owl that I heard every night. I never laid eyes on it, but I'm certain it was the same owl every time. I don't know why, but for some reason, that consistency each night, a sense of comfort. I would have certainly died a slow, lonely death in that forest had Sky not found me. As I said before, our introduction was not pleasant. It might have had something to do with the fact that I was weak, dizzy, hungry, thirsty, confused, and scared. Then to open my eyes and see a cross between an animal and a human looking back at me, at that moment, my only thought was he's about to kill me. I guess I scared the heck out of him instead though, laugh out loud. I wish I could now remember the look that must have been on his furry face. I miss him so much. Aw. It didn't take long for me to figure out that he wasn't going to hurt me. Every day I got stronger, he would bring me out further and slowly introduce me to his family. For those who don't know whom I'm talking about, I'm referring to Rose, Branch, and the leader, or what you might call an alpha. I called him Mountain. I don't think I mentioned the others though, mostly because we didn't all interact. Some of them stayed clear of me. I still don't know why that was, but I got accustomed to it and didn't push it. I called the other big fella Cliff. Yes, as in the side of a cliff, because he was huge also. At least 8 foot tall. The other ones were a little older than Sky. But like I said, they didn't really come around me. Oh, I mentioned the one with a baby. She also kept her distance, but was always sneaking around and watching me. Every time I caught her, I'd say, I see you. So I guess you could say that was what I called her. Laugh out loud. I see you. She was Cliff's mate. Her baby wasn't so bashful. He came around a lot. I called him Stinky. Oh my, he stank awful. You might not think so, but he was so cute. I probably should have called him Patches though, as his fur was very patchy when he was little. He grew fast and was much bigger than Hiccup. Him and Hiccup would become very good friends. Sky stayed close at all times in the first year as everyone was accepting me. I could tell, like me, he was a bit of a black sheep. A Bigfoot black sheep, laugh out loud. Sky taught me how to survive out there. I would never be lost, hungry, or alone again, as long as I had him. And even if he wasn't there, he taught me enough to be confident that I'd be safe. As our relationship grew, I started to see him less as an animal, and I started to see less animal in him and more soulmate. When we first met, Sky was only about 6.5 feet tall, maybe even close to 7 foot. Before his death, he was well over 7 foot tall and extremely strong. I watched him grab trees 3 to 4 inches thick and rip them out of the ground like picking flowers. Then hold me soft as a soap bubble. When he was angry, he was terrifying, but that didn't happen often, only if we were being challenged from another group from the forest, or if he thought I was in danger. Otherwise, he had eyes like a teddy bear, soft and kind. Never in my life did I feel so safe and at home as when I was with him. Of course, I always missed my family back home and held hope that someday I might see them again. I especially missed my annoying little sister, but over time I changed. I became a different kind of human. I was wild and free. I had no real need for clothes unless it was cold. If I was judged, it was because I wasn't hairy enough. Laugh out loud. I used pine cones to brush my hair. I bathed in the river. The rest of the world slowly melted away. You can't imagine how vast the forest is until it becomes your home. Don't get me wrong, there were hard times. If the temperature dropped, and it did, it was hard for me, but didn't bother them much, and I gradually did get used to it. When you live there long enough, the weather conditions don't surprise you. You learn to see the signs and be ready. Lily, this part is going to be difficult for me. It's going to be difficult for me. As I said before, giving birth to Lily and Hiccup was the second most terrifying thing in my life. I had no idea what to expect. I know I said that Sky was tender and sweet, but scary when angry. Sometimes I had dreams about our baby. I didn't know there was going to be 2. In my dreams, we had a girl. She was sweet and beautiful, but a normal human baby. She had blue eyes and golden hair. Then I also had nightmares of an angry wild baby ripping its way out and looking at me with hate and disgust. That scared me, and fortunately didn't happen. Lily was born first. She was a wonderful hair-covered, slimy bundle of joy. She took straight to me. It was instant love at first sight. I even held her as I was birthing Hiccup. Next thing I knew, I was holding two hairy-covered slimy bundles of joy. When Sky came back in, I could see the joy and pride in his eyes. He took Hiccup and held him out in front of him as he looked him over, then put him back down on my chest and left. I have a feeling he went to go tell the others. After a while, Rose took Hiccup first. I wasn't sure what she was going to do, but I'd grown to trust her. When she came back, he was all cleaned up. Then she took Lily and did the same. Everything was wonderful, and I felt this amazing connection with them and the world around us. The next morning, I noticed Lily was warm and fussy. By the end of the day, she wouldn't feed no matter how hard I tried. Sky stayed right by our side as always and just watched. I could tell he was upset and confused. On the third day, I was holding her, and she finally fell asleep and stopped shivering. For the first moment, I thought, thank God, she's getting better. Then I looked down at her, and I'd realized that she had passed away in my arms. It took every ounce of strength I could conjure to not scream and cry out. I didn't want anyone to know yet. I just wanted to hold her as long as I could. About an hour or so later, Sky came over and put his hand on her head. He looked at me and realized what was happening. He stepped backwards a few steps when it hit him. Then he came back and put his hand back on her. In the morning, he went and got Rose. Her and Branch sadly took her away. As I said, I don't know what they did with her or what they do with their dead. Sky left for a while that night, I think for some kind of ceremony maybe. I still feel a strong connection to her and all of them. I watched Lily grow up in my dreams and still see her, Sky, and Hiccup today. Hiccup. He was amazing, strong like his dad, funny like me. Sky would get aggravated with me because I'd always try to keep Hiccup clean. What can I say? I didn't want him to be like Stinky. Hiccup grew up fast, not like a normal domestic child. When most babies can walk, he could climb sapling trees. I tried to raise him like a normal child to some extent, but Sky wouldn't have it, laugh out loud. I understood why, though. By the time he was 5, he could swim, fish, set rock traps for small animals, and so much more. Someone in the comments asked what I ate out there and how I could possibly survive. To that, you would be surprised how easy it is if you know what you're looking for. The forest is the most plentiful place in the world. It's full of berries, roots, fruits, and all that you want if you want to be a vegetarian. But if you like fish, you can eat raw fish like trout and several others. I tried raw venison liver, but that was disgusting. But we hung meat out in the sun and dried it into jerky. Sometimes the dark stones on the river would get so hot I could cook fish on it. I cooked bird eggs once. I had Sky try them. He thought they were disgusting, laugh out loud. He prefers raw eggs. Can you imagine? Hiccup didn't like them cooked either. He also loved raw deer liver when his dad would share some. As I was saying, Hiccup grew up fast. The forest was his home, and like any boy, he was always out exploring, following his father around. I wish he'd been with his dad that day. Sky was off doing whatever he did out there in the forest, and Hiccup and I went down to the river to catch fish, collect roots and berries and whatever we wanted. It was just an absolutely beautiful day. For those who don't know, by this time Hiccup was around 8 years old. It didn't take long for us to gather what we needed and we was heading back. Hiccup was running in and out of the forest, eating berries and playing, same as always. Something was different this time. I wasn't sure if he heard or seen something, or if he was just running back to me, when a mountain lion came out of nowhere, lunged in the air, and grabbed Hiccup by the back of the neck and pulled him down. It was dragging him away, and I started screaming for Sky. I chased and caught up with them, and it was kicking and punching it as hard as I could, but it acted like I wasn't even there. It was just growling and kept going. I remember for a moment Hiccup looked up at me. He was so confused and scared. I really don't know if he even realized what was happening. I tried stabbing it with sticks, and they just slid off his thick fur. Before I knew it, Sky came running to us, and without hesitation, picked it up and started squeezing the life out of it. As he was doing that, it finally let go of Hiccup, but was facing Sky. It used its claws to viciously dig into Sky's stomach and legs. Then I heard its neck snap, and he dropped it. Meanwhile, I was trying to stop the blood that was pouring out of Hiccup's neck. It was so bad. Sky knelt down next to us and held Hiccup's head. By this time, almost everyone from the group was there, spread out around us. It was only moments as we watched the life drain out of Hiccup. It didn't seem real. I was living this amazing life one minute, and next it was a disaster. We have now lost both of our impossible children. Sky carried him back to the cave, and we cleaned him up and sat with him. Rose and Branch was tending to Sky's wounds. I didn't realize how bad they were at that time. Rose had rubbed some kind of salve on the wounds and covered them with leaves. It wasn't until later, when she was checking them, I looked over and seen the cuts were as deep as his intestines in some spots, and was deep in his legs. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize how bad at the moment. That night, Rose came in and got Hiccup. Sky stayed with me. I was starting to get the feeling he was hurt a lot more than he was letting on. Rose and Branch continued to treat Sky over the next several days. His wounds appeared to be healing much faster than a normal person would, and I was beginning to think it would be okay. But then I started smelling something and realized the wounds in his stomach were getting infected. They tried hard to clean them and treat them, but it kept getting worse. Then he got a fever, not like us. I could barely touch him, he was so hot. Every day we would help him down to the river to soak in the cool and cool down. By the third week, he couldn't even stand. On the last night, he laid his head on my lap. It was a lot like Lily. All of a sudden, he stopped shivering, and I felt his temperature coming down. But I knew this time what was happening. We just stared into each other's eyes. He was grinning at me to show me how happy he was. I smiled back and kissed his forehead a couple of times, and we sat there and stared into each other's eyes until he was gone. In that moment, I felt my entire world collapse out from underneath me. I heard the others outside start howling, making some kind of loud howling and making lonesome sounds in the distance. Somehow they must have known. To answer another question, yes, they are connected like a flock of birds in the sky. Someone also asked if they can teleport. If they can, they never showed me, but I did find it very strange that they could get from place to place so fast and quick and quietly. There was a lot that was kept from me, and I was okay with that. The next morning, Rose brought one of the other males in, and he carried Sky out. Rose stayed with me for a while, and then she left. Over the next few days, she came back with food and water, but I had no desire to eat or drink. Rose and Branch took turns sitting with me while I cried. Eventually, Mountain entered the cave for the first time since I'd gotten there. He was a lot bigger than Sky and had to keep his head down in the cave. Thinking back, if I had to guess, the ceiling of the cave was approximately 9, maybe 10 foot tall at least. If Sky could snap a 3 to 4 inch tree like a twig, then Mountain and even Cliff could snap an 8 to 10 inch tree like a twig, maybe bigger. Woo! Wow. Mountain's arms, when he picked me up and cradled me, were as big as my entire body and still, somehow, just as gentle as can be. When he whispered home to me, I knew it was my time to go, and I wasn't scared. He made me feel safe and comfortable again somehow. That's why I fell asleep on his massive chest and didn't wake up till we reached Charlie's cabin. For those who don't know, Charlie was an old Indian friend of Mountain. He set me down gently and repeated again, home, and then I watched him return to the forest. About Charlie. He was wonderful. He spoke broken English as well as his native language, sometimes both at once. Laugh out loud. I stayed with Charlie for over a year. I might have stayed longer, but I learned as much as I could learn, again, about dressing and acting civilized. Well, as much as I could from an old Indian. Charlie must have been at least 90, maybe 100 years old. He would leave for the day and sometimes 2 days and come back with clothes for me and food. He had a chessboard and we played a lot. One day out of the blue, he told me I should go be with my family now. I grew to love him like a grandfather and I didn't want to go. But I knew he was right. Moreover, I think he knew his time was coming and he didn't want me there for that. So he walked me several miles to the nearest town. I gave him a big hug and thanked him. He said I was a pain in the ass. Go find my family, and pointed. I knew what he really meant. He handed me a leather bag and said, be wise with this. Everything is expensive out here. And I said goodbye, Charlie, and waited till he was gone. I looked around at the houses and buildings. I watched the cars and trucks fly by for quite a while. All my instincts told me to run back into the forest and go find my family. But I knew that what I had was rare and it wasn't where I belonged anymore. So I started walking down the road and never looked back. I lived day to day, sleeping in the woods and then in parks, and slowly started to remember who I was. I finally decided to rent a room in a sleazy hotel, laugh out loud. I took the first real shower I'd had in over 10 years. It felt amazing, but you should have seen me trying to fix my hair in the mirror again. I laughed at myself for the first time in a long time. Then, as I was looking at myself, I seen my mother looking back at me. That's when I decided I needed to go find my family again. Well, Steve, this is the end. I don't think I have anything else to share. As I said before, I give this story to you to do with it what you choose. If you want to read it and delete it, that's up to you. If you want to put it in your coffee table book, that's okay too. It's yours now. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening. I hope Wendy, Claire, and Amarik find all the peace and love that they deserve. Please give them and your viewers my best. Sincerely, Jane. Well, we got through it. Wasn't easy. Jane, thank you so much. You're thanking me. Thank you from all of us. Thank you so very much for sharing that amazing story with us. I mean, my goodness gracious. I guess I would have, the curious me would have liked to know more about your reentrance to your family, but I respect that. That's you. I just hope, well, obviously it went well. I mean, you've obviously done well for yourself and reconnected, and that's phenomenal. I'm really happy that you got through all that and you just stayed strong. I mean, you are just such an inspiration to so many people. The fact that right from the first time, I mean, you had this angry childhood and then something that would have been catastrophic to most people, you thrived. I mean, it's just, you thrived and you grew and you had this just amazing experience that most people could never dream of, bad or good, whatever. But, and then, I mean, you had also experienced extreme tragedy. So again, we are our deepest sympathies for that as well. I can, from your stories, I can just imagine all of them: sky, lily, hiccup. I mean, mountain, cliff, all of them, rose, branch. Thank you.